It is a 7-seat, multi-person mover that carries the weight of an entire brand on its shoulders.
This vehicle is really important to Volkswagen.
A machine that harkens back to one of the most iconic vehicles ever produced.
Volkswagen isn't exactly new to having vehicles that carry a lot of people.
And an SUV aimed squarely at a single market.
This is an established segment in the US market. Volkswagen has now jumped on that bandwagon.
The VW Atlas, the brand's latest attempt to gain ground in America and its very first affordable mid-sized SUV.
You can be late, but you need to nail it.
This is the Superbuilt story, how an SUV helps a brand and a city survive.
I think this plant was the best thing to hit Chattanooga.
Boost our economy, and you're getting a product that's built here.
The local economy had needed this kind of boost for a long time.
It's a machine conceived in Germany, born in the USA, and built inside a state-of-the-art factory.
So this is the very beginning. You can see behind me, it's an empty shell. It's really nothing. This is where it becomes interesting.
Welcome to Volkswagen's Chattanooga, Tennessee assembly plant, a facility that builds 414 vehicles a day.
It takes roughly 8 hours of production to get it from here, off of band section 7, fired up as a new vehicle to go to a customer.
3,500 workers clock in over 2 shifts and manufacture a mixture of Passat sedans and Atlas SUVs.
It's a very fast pace. It's an exciting thing. You get to see something built.
I think manufacturing is fundamental to the American dream, and having an opportunity to create a great product and earn a living and support your family, any manufacturing really is good manufacturing. We all read the news now, what we're trying to do to bring more manufacturing back, and this is what drives the entire country. For me, it's critical.
Manufacturing is crucial to the country, yet perhaps more important to the local economy.
A lot of businesses have come and gone, but now it seems a lot more sustained. More just keep coming here.
If you can manufacture a product like this, that's just saying that we have the know-how, we have the capability, we have the drive to do this successfully and compete with the rest of the world.
To compete on a global scale, the team must build a great machine and also craft a brand new culture. The Chattanooga plant is less than a decade old.
This is the first generation of Volkswagen employees really in this Chattanooga area.
We had brand new workforce. Some people never even knew how to build a car. We had to teach them how to hold the tools, fundamental skills, how to pick the right parts out of the bin, so a lot of training.
One of the people helping to shape the Volkswagen way is assembly shop manager Noland Mickens.
I get teased a lot because they call me the mayor of VW. I hate to say that, but they do kind of call me that.
Every day, Noland oversees the sprawling final assembly hall's 480 team members.
A lot of times when I'm walking through the plant, I'm really open with the team members, so they get a lot of opportunities to talk to me about what's going on. Any issues, good and bad, I get to talk to them about it, so I really enjoy it.
It's easy to enjoy life these days, but when Volkswagen decides to put down roots in Chattanooga, the world is very different.
Our company made a decision to build a plant in Chattanooga when we were in one of the worst recessions in the history of the world. At least in my lifetime, it had never been that bad. So for a company to invest $1 billion in Chattanooga, Tennessee to do something for us to really hold on to, I was all in once I realized that.
The factory opens in 2012 and radically changes the city.
The town was very excited. The fact that a world-class manufacturer had chosen this city to build it was unbelievable.
We were very much convinced that the southern part of the United States offers a lot of positive aspects for a new factory. It was a growing area, and we feel a kind of startup atmosphere.
Unlike Detroit, Michigan, where they've been building cars for over a century, the state of Tennessee is a relative novice when it comes to automobile manufacturing.
Volkswagen's investment in Chattanooga will fundamentally change the way that town operates.
The American South has become very popular with automakers. As the South's economy has changed over the decades, mercantile industries have moved offshore. There's still a talented labor pool that can build things.
The initial investment pays off. In less than 5 years, the plant creates over $12 billion of financial growth. Yet the biggest breaks take place right on the line.
There's a lot of opportunity here at Volkswagen, so I was able to move up pretty quickly.
These days, the factory is full of optimism, partly due to the lessons learned in the past.
The plant in Chattanooga is Volkswagen's second attempt at building cars in the States. They used to build them in Pennsylvania and Westmoreland, a plant that shut down in the late 80s.
I think in the 70s and 80s, America may have lost that drive a little bit, but now it's back. We know how important it is, and it's something to carry the country forward, carry this area forward.
The key to moving the area forward, surprisingly, comes down to moving people. A lot of people.
SUV sales are through the roof. It's what everyone wants. Sedan sales are going down by something like 20% a year.
The market absorbs 1.8 million midsize SUVs, and Volkswagen did not have a large seven-seater SUV.
The rapid growth of sport utility vehicles forces Volkswagen to reimagine itself.
We have been known in the past more as a small car, passenger car company. We shifted the brand more to a family-oriented SUV company.
To change perception, the brand introduces the Atlas SUV at the 2016 Los Angeles Auto Show.
One of the biggest shake-ups ever in the brand's history in the United States. Please welcome the Volkswagen Atlas midsize seven-seater SUV for the first time at an auto show.
The Atlas is designed with the US market in mind, and with the movement from minivans to SUVs, it has 3 rows, it can seat your whole family comfortably, and it looks a lot better than a minivan too.
You're driving your children, and this car has to be absolutely safe, and this is how we designed it. Volkswagen is hopefully a kind of car that also delivers some kind of fun. It's not only, let's say, a tool to get from A to B, it also should be kind of fun to be in.
To ensure that the Atlas is capable of getting from point A to point B, engineers test the machine in a variety of harsh conditions.
We did tons of real-world testing, driving them on the road to shake them down for any undesirable noises, powertrain behaviors. We did a lot of calibrating the transmissions to the engines.
Some of the prototypes are run up for 75,000 miles, and each is pushed to the limit.
There are high-temperature testings that are done in under 15 degrees. There's also cold weather testing. I think some of the temperatures got down to around negative 35 degrees Fahrenheit.
When the Atlas enters production, it becomes VW's largest machine ever built for the US market. Yet it will never be its most famous multi-person mover.
My first memory of a new car was riding around in a 1962 Samba bus. In fact, I've got a picture of one of those, and so it's something I carry around because it's a really fond memory. There's the family, and There's me, that dark-headed kid in the middle, but that's my family, and that was our van.
Informally known as the Bus, the Volkswagen Type 2 debuts in November 1949. It's the idea of a Dutch auto importer who idly sketches the concept on a cocktail napkin. Amazingly, the Type 2 is just the second model ever manufactured by the brand.
The Bus was totally different. It looked like absolutely nothing else on the road. It sounded like nothing else on the road. You had to turn around and say, who is that? Who is that person that chose that thing over some conventional transportation device?
Back in the late 60s, early 70s, Volkswagen stood for a whole generation, a little bit against the stream, being special. And this microbus in California, which was really so successful.
The first generation has a 24 horsepower air-cooled engine. However, it's the vehicle's rear engine, rear-wheel drive layout that creates the amazing space efficiency and the ability to transport up to 9 people comfortably.
The Volkswagen station wagon is only 9 inches longer than the Volkswagen sedan. Yet it holds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, including bag and baggage.
And the microbus allows people to move their families in a fairly compact vehicle. And you can get a lot of people into it, and it predates SUVs being used for family usage. It predates the minivan.
They sell just 9,500 machines the first year. Humble beginnings that belie the vehicle's eventual success. During its 56-year run, VW will build over 3.5 million buses.
We have 6 children in my family, and Dad needed something big to haul everybody around, and so we ended up with a Volkswagen van, and that was the first of many, many Volkswagens that the family has had.
Perhaps even more importantly, the machine becomes an iconic fixture of the 60s hippie revolution and the 70s surf scene.
Well, the microbus was sort of right place, right time.
The great thing about the microbus is that it could be anything to anyone. It was the SUV, but cheaper. And that was a big part of Volkswagen's early appeal, is they made very affordable cars. These days, people have shifted away from vans and minivans, and they're more interested in SUVs. And whether it's because they need the capability or they like sitting up high, whatever the reason is, that's where the market is now.
A market that Volkswagen is clearly targeting with their all-new 7-seat Atlas. The question is whether or not they're too late. The top-of-the-line Volkswagen Atlas offers over 276 horsepower, all-wheel drive, and tows over 2,200 kilograms. Yet, it might very well be too late.
The Atlas is a product that Volkswagen needed to build 5 years ago, and maybe even 10 years ago.
Sometimes it's smarter to be a smart follower than to be too early. The segment is strong, big, developed, and we bring a great package which will find its customers.
While it's a dramatic portfolio shift, it's not the first time that Volkswagen has tried to play the SUV game.
VW SUV might sound a little weird just because they haven't been very good at it.
It's taken Volkswagen a long time to really embrace the SUV market.
In 2007, the brand introduces a compact SUV called the Tiguan.
The Tiguan, which is their small SUV, is good, but it might have been a little too small for the US market, a little too expensive.
This was not Volkswagen saying, let's create an SUV. It was, let's make an SUV out of this existing hatchback. And it was priced out of the market by all of the Japanese and American competition that just made a better product at a lower price.
The brand's first foray comes 5 years prior, when it introduces the full-size Touareg.
The Touareg just had one of the strangest names ever applied to an SUV.
The Touareg bigger one was also almost a luxury vehicle.
Volkswagen has a really funny love-hate relationship with names. Its original cars weren't named at all. The Beetle was not named by Volkswagen. That was a nickname given to it by people. Same thing with the bus. Volkswagen's next generation had some of the best names ever because they were all named after winds and no one noticed it. Golf for Gulfstream, Jetta for Jetstream, Passat, Scirocco, all these other great names. Then they started naming their cars after combinations of words that made no sense, like Tiguan and Touareg and all this obscure stuff, which means nothing to anyone.
It's kind of amazing that nobody had taken the Atlas name already. I think it's a fantastic name. I mean, it connotes strength, it connotes size, but nobody had taken that name somehow. So the Atlas is their new 3-row SUV.
The market moved more towards everyday SUV. And for a long time, Volkswagen stuck with its strategy. Small one, big one, done. But that's not where the market is now.
Highlighting VW's troubles, the Tiguan and the Touareg collectively sell 400,000 machines per year in the United States. Meanwhile, Honda sells nearly as many machines with just their CR-V platform.
One of the defining characteristics of Volkswagen is that they can't be successful in the US. This is the thorn in the side of all Volkswagen executives for the last 30 years.
Volkswagen has wanted to become more than just a small player in the United States. In the rest of the world, it's huge. It's just a gigantic, gigantic brand that sells a lot of cars.
So about a decade ago, they decided the way to fix that is to bifurcate their product line. They have the products that sell everywhere in the rest of the world and the stuff that will be specifically for the US.
Americans, generally speaking, like to have more family-friendly, larger cars. That's why it was so important that we arrived with the Atlas into this segment.
It's a mid-size SUV. And if you look at the development of the automotive market, especially in the US, in the past years, you can see that the SUV segment is a very, very fast-growing segment.
The importance of those customers can't be overstated. These days, 40% of the automotive industry's sales come from utility vehicles.
Volkswagen, let's remember, means people's car. And if it's one thing that Volkswagen has pulled off through the years over and over again, it's making a car that punches way over its weight for people. The Atlas looks at what people really need and gives it to them at a price that's half of what it really should be.
Building that value begins inside the Gestamp press shop.
Gestamp's normal business mode is we travel wherever the customer goes, and that's why we're here in Chattanooga.
Gestamp is a Spanish multinational corporation that operates in 21 different countries. While you may not have heard their name, there's a good chance that they pressed the body panels on your car.
We stamp everything from the roof to the hood inner, the door outers, the fenders, the liftgate, the body side, the entire outside shell of the vehicle.
The 170,000 square foot shop features 6 gigantic presses that create 415 vehicles worth of parts every day.
The lead press is 2,500 tons. It's approximately 450 Asian elephants.
Most presses this size are mechanical, meaning that they create parts with force. But the Gestamp plant features hydraulic units, which form the parts using pressure.
Our blanks come in, it's loaded onto a conveyor, goes through a wash, then it goes into the first operation, which is typically a draw. So about 90% of the part is formed. Then it goes through subsequent operations that'll either trim or pierce holes or put final form in.
The blank body sides weigh 28 kilograms when they're loaded, yet lose half that weight once pressed.
Metal stamping, automotive metal stamping is all I know. It's the only business I've ever been in is automotive tier 1 metal stamping business. After 18, 19 years, if I wasn't passionate about it, it'd be pretty frustrating.
Every 5 minutes, a finished part rolls off the line. Then a team member rubs oil on it to check the quality.
That's called highlighting. So when you highlight the part, it gives it the appearance of a painted part. So you can find the defects in it, highs, lows, slivers, all kinds of defects are detected in the highlight booth. You have to be able to read the lights. The way the lights break tells you what kind of defects you have in it.
It's an old school skill that requires a lot of practice to get right.
I've been doing it for about 25 years, so it takes time. It takes time to be able to see defects in the highlighter booth.
Reviewing how the light moves over the panel identifies defects. But the real highlight is the factory campus itself. At the dawn of the new century, the city of Chattanooga decides their best hope for an economic explosion is to lure big business.
This used to be a TNT manufacturing facility back in the 40s. Started in the 40s, I made TNT. And it was sitting there, it shut down in the mid-90s. Tennessee and Chattanooga got together and developed it for a manufacturer to come in.
The city revitalizes 24 square kilometers of a destitute former ammunitions factory and turns it into a massive industrial park.
This was all just kind of developed flat land, and now you see there's 2 supplier park buildings, there's Volkswagen itself, there's 2 stop facilities, Amazon's come here locally. All that developed land has all changed overnight in the last 8 years since I've been coming down here.
VW's arrival immediately adds 10,000 new jobs to the area.
The automotive industry has brought a lot of jobs. It's really nice to see the economic growth in Chattanooga in particular.
The other economic things, all the supporting businesses and small production supply companies that are now larger.
Building the factory is relatively easy, but in an area with very little automotive know-how, finding skilled tradespeople is the challenge.
Capital investment has had a renaissance, but the skill set has not had a renaissance. So it's clear that our biggest struggle in all of Chattanooga is the ability to hire tool makers. We struggle with that every day.
To ensure their future, the brand partners with the state of Tennessee and creates a unique apprenticeship program called the Volkswagen Academy.
We have a 3-year program, and we train them, but they're also students of Chattanooga State. The benefit is, at the end, they get an associate's degree in applied science. They get certified by the German-American Chamber of Commerce, and then they also get a conditional job offer through Volkswagen.
It's a win-win that's of increasing importance thanks to what's become known as the trade skills gap.
I think society pushed to higher paying jobs where you weren't successful unless you were a boss or you were an engineer designing and creating it.
Everybody's going for 4-year degrees, and that's great, but industry needs people that has hands-on skills.
You shift the generation towards engineering and computers, you then lack kids that are interested in turning a wrench.
We've got more than 800 robots down in the plant, and we need somebody that can program them, somebody that can maintain them and take care of them.
The need for skilled tradespeople isn't just an issue facing Volkswagen, but rather a growing worldwide epidemic.
We work a lot with the government. They've estimated that there's more than 160,000 jobs across the United States that go unfilled because they don't have the hands-on skills that we're teaching here in this program.
The brand has a tremendous incentive to help fill the void. Every minute that the factory goes down costs the company up to $10,000.
We're teaching primarily mechatronics here.
Mechatronics sounds like a sci-fi term, but it's actually a multidisciplinary field of study that combines mechanical engineering, electronics, and computer science.
A lot of companies will teach somebody to be a mechanic or an electrician or an IT person. The problem is, say a motor goes bad in a robot, and then you have to have a mechanic change the motor, an electrician has to wire it, and an IT person has to program it. Our people can do all three.
Being able to service a robot is important.
If you take a basic robot, for example, it's got 3 major functions. It has to have the mechanics to be able to move, and that's a lot of times done with pneumatics and hydraulics. It also has to have the brains behind it, which is the PLC, the programmable logic controllers. Then it has to have the communication that's going to take it from the brain to that motor to make the robot move. All these are things that we teach here.
Training the next generation doesn't start with books, but rather blocks.
So they'll take this block, they will physically take a hacksaw and cut it down to size, file this down till they make this perfect block.
And so they start you off with filing, and then they advance you into a lathe and a knee mill, and then they'll put you into electrical classes and get the theory of it. And then once you get the theory and understand the theory, they start applying the electrical side of it with your motors, your drives, and your PLC, what we're doing today.
This right here, I believe, is the backbone of America. I mean, how many things would not have been made if it wasn't for machines like these? So I think it's amazing to be able to know how to run one of these.
If you spent 8 weeks with a file creating that, then you really respect what machinery can do, and it really gives you the idea of how precise we need to be.
It's a quest for precision that often leads to a new way of life.
For the last 11 years, I've been in heating and air conditioning. I decided that either you can go down into a plant and be on the line and one day be replaced by a robot, where if you work on them, you don't get replaced.
These days, there's no more important place to keep robots running than in the body shop, where a ballet of machinery creates one of the safest SUVs in the world. The Volkswagen Atlas looks at home on rolling Tennessee hills, or in muddy waters. It's also one of the largest mid-size SUVs on the market, with nearly 3 cubic meters of storage. Yet, amazingly, it's not based on an off-road machine or even a truck, but rather on the Golf, thanks to VW's MQB architecture.
MQB is Volkswagen's platform that they use for a variety of vehicles. It's incredibly flexible, so that allows them to make something as small as a Golf out of MQB, and then something as large as an Atlas.
You have a modular possibility to adjust the length of a car, the height of a car, and also the width of a car. And that you are following certain rules, how you assemble parts.
Basically, the engine layout is determined by the platform, and then everything behind that is adjustable, sort of like a set of Legos.
It takes a combination of brains and brawn, plus 834 body shop-based robots to construct those Legos.
We are here in the body shop, where the sheet metal coming from our stamping facilities.
If you go through the body shop, you see all the robots working actively, bringing this very complex structure together.
The first big connection takes place at the Geo 1 cell, where a small handful of robots assemble the floor pan in just 136 seconds.
This is the birth of our Atlas. This is the base platform to build up the whole structure on the underbody, on the floor pan for the Atlas.
Once the bottom of the machine is built, it heads to the Framer 1 station, where they add the inner side panels. Then it's time for the exterior body sides.
This is exactly the heart of the body shop. So right now we are at the Framer 2. In this station, we attach the surface, the skin of the Atlas, to the framer. So the body gets basically built up to a really strong skeleton, and then in this station, weld it together, that it gets a nice appearance.
It's a sparky spot. Each Atlas requires 5,586 welds.
Then in the further process, we start putting the hanger parts to the body.
Partially assembled bodies head to the closure line, where it takes a touch of humanity to install the rear tailgate. doors, front fenders, and bonnet.
So right now we are on the final inspection station. We have team members checking gap and flushness.
There's a lot of quality checks in place. If you drive a Volkswagen, you can really see that passion for the fit and for the feel.
Approved bodies head across the Chattanooga facility to a state-of-the-art paint shop.
If you go into the paint shop, you see this fantastic clean room atmosphere where a lot of robots and process technology bring this beautiful paint appearance onto the body.
To accommodate Atlas production, VW expands the paint facility. Today, it's capable of hitting 45 jobs per hour. The first step is to dip fresh bodies in a primer bath.
Doesn't matter what type model, what size, we can really dust every single square inch of this vehicle. The robot, we program it, it goes where we tell it.
Brushed bodies then get their first taste of color, thanks to another set of robots, which are capable of spinning electrostatic paint at 50,000 revolutions per minute.
We have 8 colors. This particular one, you can see, is black. So we paint the interior, and then we paint the exterior. It goes through a dehumidification oven in preparation to put the clear or the shiny material on top.
The room uses a dry collecting system to catch the overspray.
It basically is a cardboard box with many air cylinders inside that catch the paint. It's an E-tube system. This dry technology is relatively new for such a large paint booth.
The system is both cleaner and more efficient than previous water-based overspray booths. Yet the real benefit is that clean air can be recycled right back into the booth. Colored bodies go through an oven to help the paint dry. Then the shells head to a quality control line, where a craftsperson looks the vehicle over.
We're almost to the very end of the paint shop now. We're on one of our finesse lines. This is the area where we're doing a final inspection of the surface of the vehicle. You've painted before something, I know, and you know how sticky it is. So anything, a fiber, anything in air, it stays on it. So we're looking for any type of a blemish.
Crisply completed coats keep the factory running on time while instilling a strong sense of pride.
Satisfaction for me is seeing the output at the end of the day. It's very tangible. You can see it. You know, you can say, well, it's just a number. Well, it's more than just a number. It's a real car that somebody's going to buy, and then you're going to see it out on the street, and you say, yeah, I had something to do with that.
It's taken just over 9 hours to add some color. Now the body is ready to enter the final assembly hall, where 480 craftspeople per shift build machines that continue to reconstruct the fortunes of a brand and a city. Less than a decade ago, Volkswagen's Chattanooga factory was nothing more than a grass field. Today, it's a hustling, bustling hive of industry that cranks out over 400 new machines per day.
This is what we do, and we're very passionate. We've got very low seniority, 7 years, 8 years is about the tops. So all of them were pretty much hired in at the same time. There is a certain sense of pride with the ones that were the originals that started this place from the ground up.
I want Volkswagen to succeed. I want Volkswagen to be #1. I know they're not #1 in America's sales, but I think we can make a good dent in it with the Atlas.
The compact final assembly hall is divided into 7 lines, squeezed into a very tight space.
There's a lot of overhead activity, so the vehicle's transferred at an overhead, and it goes different directions because we tried to fit it into the tightest space possible to be more efficient.
Every 133 seconds, the line moves. The build begins when the doors come off. Then they add roof racks. Parts like the wiring harness arrive just in time, where a craftsperson scans the unit to ensure it's correct, then walks it to the vehicle for installation.
Most challenging station probably be in zone 1, but it has a lot to do with the wiring harness, a lot of small movements, particular movements. The harnesses can weigh up to 150 pounds.
It will now take 4 more stations to fully fit the harness into place, the last of which uses a unique, ergonomically friendly swing-in seat. Further down the line, a craftsperson hand loads a windscreen into a cell before a robot precisely adds adhesive. The glued unit then swings to the line, where 2 more team members push it into place. They install the brake booster and foot pedals. As the machine continues being built up on another line across the factory, they sub-assemble the high-tech dashboard.
This is where we build up the entire instrument panel. You know, the most maybe important or seen thing from the customer. So we take a lot of pride in that. We do everything in-house. So it starts with the IP skin you can see here, and we do a complete assembly.
First, they add a wiring harness to a jig, then the HVAC system, before 2 workers lift the instrument panel skin over the unit and secure it. Next, they install a bit of high-end luxury tech.
The coolest feature of the infotainment is the 12.3-inch display, a fully customizable digital cockpit, very neat to really see the relevant information, and of course the navigation directly for the driver.
They pop the glove box in, install the temperature control unit, and finally the navigation system. Finished dashboards are then sent across the facility, where a massive hoist swings them into a waiting machine. They install the headliner, seat belts, and the structural components for the center console. On another sub-assembly line, they prep both the turbocharged 4-cylinder and naturally aspirated 6-cylinder engines.
The 6-cylinder naturally aspirated engine is our base engine for this car. The second engine we offer is a 4-cylinder, but it's a turbocharged engine. And both engines deliver a little bit a different kind of performance to the customer. The 6-cylinder is a very smooth engine. The 4-cylinder is a little bit more sporty.
Dressing the engine starts with bolting the transmission into place. Then they add the alternator. Before sending the unit to a dedicated chassis line.
On this line, we pretty much installed the entire chassis of the car. We build it and we implement the front axles onto the chassis carriers, as you can see here. And then we proceed to put the manifold, the exhaust. You see back there, we drop the engine down. We build the whole chassis of the car.
The chassis line is comprised of 24 stations, and every single one is essential.
Main things we have here is the routing of the parts, making sure the torques are correct, because this goes over to the marriage line. And when it gets married, that's a one-time shot. You know what I mean?
Getting things right is a challenge because the chassis line moves even faster than the rest of the factory.
Currently, we're running 76, 77 second cycle time. Of course, we tell team members safety's number one, and then quality, and then productivity.
It is really nerve-wracking when you first start, when you first try it. It is, but you get it. But without teamwork, none of this is possible. I mean, you've got many people working together, helping each other out, going above and beyond.
Strong commitments start on the line, but don't necessarily stop there.
I actually met my wife. She worked in logistics at the time, and I was on a special project with engineering, and I asked her out to dinner one day, and we just hit it off from there. Been married 3 years since then. We got a beautiful child.
To keep families full of children safe, the Atlas employs what VW calls their 4-motion system.
It gives you that comfort of four-wheel drive in all different types of driving conditions in 4 pre-selected drive modes. It allows for monitoring the power output to specific wheels based on what kind of resistance or traction, so it's pretty adaptive.
So the Atlas underneath is a front-wheel drive vehicle. It has the ability to fade in rear-wheel drive as well, creating an all-wheel drive vehicle. There's nothing really special about the Atlas's all-wheel drive system, but these systems do really well in fuel economy and then get you going when slippery.
It takes a little over half an hour to complete a chassis. Yet the payoff is far greater than just a vehicle.
To me, we're building the future. Building the future for Chattanooga, building the future for Volkswagen in America. It's given me a lot of opportunities for a better lifestyle, you know, a great future for my daughter. And like I said, we're just building the future for ourselves and our families.
Once a drivetrain is completed, it moves to the neighboring line, where the heart of the machine is installed.
So we're on band section 3, BA3. This is obviously one of the more interesting places. This is where the chassis and the body become married and all the critical underbody torques are made. The tolerances are very critical. You can be out just a couple mils and we can have a crash during marriage.
Merging the body with the chassis takes just under 10 seconds.
It's our most heavily automated area, and it's the combination between automation and humans.
After the marriage cell, it's up to a team of talented craftspeople to tighten all the bolts on the undercarriage.
This line, basically, you bolt everything underneath the car.
To get the job done, they use custom-made, ergonomically friendly rolling seats.
You can't go out and buy these. So in our assembly department, we have 3 personnel on each shift. That's called the continuous improvement team. They have their own workshop. They come out here every shift. They work with the team members to find out how can they make their jobs more efficient, more comfortable, better ergonomically. So everything is customized for the operation.
Volkswagen has over 100 factories across the globe, yet the Chattanooga facility stands out among the crowd.
We're very proud here in Chattanooga of our ergonomic condition, and we have the best ergonomic condition out of all the factories in Volkswagen. We're very proud of that.
Newlywed machines move to line 4, where they mount the radiator.
This is another critical line for us. They're all critical, but this is where the vehicle gets its headlights, taillights, front bumper, rear bumper. We do all the underbody work.
They install the front headlights, battery, front fascia, and rear bumper.
We take pride on is the fit and the finish of the vehicle. This is one of the things that makes the Volkswagen different from any other vehicle, down to 1/2 mil tolerances. This line is critical for that because the headlights, taillights, front and rear bumpers, this is where they get set.
Finally, after 4 assembly lines, the machine is ready for some liquid.
Here we do the fluid fill, which is behind us. This is where all the fluids, the coolant, brake fluid, AC, those are all filled to the car. So we do it with 3 different pieces of equipment.
Manufacturing an Atlas is a combination of heartfelt passion and an obsessive attention to detail. Depending on the trim level, each machine receives between 2,500 and 3,000 individual parts.
Manufacturing the car is very complex. We hold very tight tolerances. There's a lot of different parts that come together to make the end product that we have. Our fit and finish is very important to us, very complicated.
The fixation with fit and finish is best seen on BA6.
This is actually the last part of assembly that we're adding content to the vehicle. So on this line, we actually put the wheels and tires on the vehicle, we put the seats in, we put the doors back on the vehicle.
Wheels are moved to the line by a conveyor system and quickly hoisted over before being bolted into place with a massive torque gun. Next, they swing the 3rd row seating into place. Then add the middle row. The installation is fast, yet the seats are even more efficient in the real world.
It's basically a feature I wish I would have had when my kids were younger.
The seats fold forward pretty cleverly, and you can leave a child seat actually in the seat and still fold it forward. There's still enough space. And then that with a pretty big rear door allow even adults to get into the 3rd row.
Part of the brilliance of this Atlas is Volkswagen took a step back and said, how do people really use this car? And it's a people mover for people who have kids. So Volkswagen looked creatively at different ways of making that middle row of seats move easily so that smaller people, like moms, for example, with a kid in their hand, can get the seats out of the way. It takes a different train of thought.
It's taken nearly 7 hours to go from a bare painted body to a functional machine.
This is our finish line. It's BA7, and the car's completed here. This is where the car becomes a car. Every place else is just like a piece of furniture, but here we can actually drive the car right off this line.
On line 7, a dedicated team does a final quality control check of the entire vehicle.
Where we're located right now is actually one of the more interesting parts of the assembly department. I wouldn't use the word chaotic, but there's a lot of communication, a lot of teamwork that has to happen on this line. This is where body shop, paint shop, assembly shop, and quality assurance all work together to try and do the final buy-off in the assembly process.
There may not be any parts installed on this particular line, but there is one very special station.
The first ignition of the vehicle happens right here in this station, which is a cool thing, right? Because 8 hours ago, this started as a bunch of pieces. For production guys like myself, this is why we do what we do. You know, there's a lot of other things you can do in your life, a lot of things that are less stressful, but not so many that are more fulfilling than actually providing something that's probably the second biggest investment that anybody's gonna make, you know, aside from your house.
The hard work done by thousands of people is easy to see at the end of the line. Yet success or failure hinges on how the public views the machine.
The Atlas has that value that Americans want. It's got the space Americans want, and it's got a design that Americans should find appealing.
There is a huge value for what you get. It's well priced against the competition, and it's a really great package.
When you drive an Atlas, it feels like a Volkswagen. When I say something feels like a Volkswagen, I mean it feels like a Golf. It has really, really direct steering. It's smooth, it's quiet, and it feels grown up, but agile at the same time.
The VW Atlas, a 7-seat SUV built to reimagine a marque for a new era. Only time will tell whether or not it's enough to change the fate and fortune of the brand out on the open road.
Volkswagen does extremely well in other markets, but they've always had some trouble with the US. The Beetle was very popular, the microbus was very popular, but they couldn't quite keep that popularity going.
The big gamble is, do people in the US who buy Volkswagens because they're not the same as all the other competitors? Or do they just want a car that works? We're gonna find out.
They've got to make a mark here. They've got to get people to say, Volkswagen has a 3-year crossover now and I want it.
If the Atlas is really successful, it means that consumers just want something that works. If it doesn't, it's not because it's not a good car, because it is a really good car. It's because Volkswagen buyers expect something different, and they're not getting it.